At exactly 12:01 p.m. on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, the unmistakable sound of a tuba shattered the peaceful quiet of Willow Creek Estates. Not in a bad way, not yet. The kind of tuba sound that meant business. It didn't come from some amateur middle schooler wheezing through a warm-up, no. This was full-chested, booming brass echoing across pristine lawns and color-coded mailboxes. And standing on her porch in pink fuzzy slippers and rage-lined wrinkles was Karen Whitmore, self-proclaimed Queen of the HOA and unchallenged ruler of neighborly misery. But let's rewind, because that tuba wasn't the beginning. It was the response. The battle cry. The clap back. The real beginning? That was just a grilled cheese sandwich and a Spotify playlist. 3 days earlier, I was in my kitchen, minding my own business like any well-adjusted adult trying to survive suburbia without strangling someone. Noon sharp. I just flipped a gooey grilled cheese onto a plate, steam curling off the crust, when Rick Astley started crooning from my Bluetooth speaker, "Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down." The beat was mellow, cheerful, ironic, even. The kind of thing that made a guy smile in spite of a burnt thumb and a life filled with student loans. I wasn't throwing a rager, just vibing with a sandwich and some nostalgia. Window cracked open for the breeze, sound turned low. Barely above a whisper compared to the leaf blowers and barking dogs I'd heard every morning since moving into this suspiciously Stepford-looking neighborhood that I didn't think twice about it, until the next day that a letter arrived. No, not a normal one. Not a birthday card or Amazon delivery. This one had intent. It was sealed in a thick cream envelope with a gold-embossed HOA logo that looked like it belonged on currency. Inside was a neatly printed violation. Noise disturbance violation, Section 5, Article 2B. Excessive music at 12:03 p.m. Fine, $250. I blinked. Reread it. Laughed, nervously, then read it again. Out loud, $250, for listening to Rick Astley at noon? I swear I could hear thunder rumble in the distance, and it wasn't weathered up. That's when I saw her, Karen Whitmore, standing smugly in her front yard across the cul-de-sac, perfectly framed by the manicured rose bushes she tended like they were Faberge eggs. She had the look of someone who just caught a teenager sneaking out of detention and couldn't wait to ruin prom. She raised a mug to me. It said, "HOA strong." I don't believe in omens. But if I did, that mug would have been the horseman of suburban apocalypse. Later that afternoon, I tried to vent to my roommate, Jake. The kind of guy who once turned a neighbor's aggressive barking Pomeranian into a meme and got it trending on Twitter. He was lounging on the couch, playing Xbox and wearing socks with avocados on them. "You got fined at noon for music," he said, not even looking away from the screen. What, was it gangster rap about tax fraud? Rick Astley. Jake paused the game. Slowly turned. "You got rickrolled and fined for it. Apparently, that qualifies as a criminal act now." Dude, that's not a fine. That's a declaration of war. He wasn't wrong. Let me paint the picture a little better. Willow Creek Estates isn't just any neighborhood. It's the kind where lawns are cut diagonally, mailboxes are identical down to the shade of taupe, and God help you if your recycling bin is visible from the street for longer than 3 seconds. There are rules. And Karen? She lives for rules, according to neighborhood lore, and by lore I mean a snarky Facebook group called Free Willow Creek. Karen had been HOA president for 6 years, survived 3 recalls, and once made a family remove their child's inflatable Santa because it was too joyful. To say she's a control freak would be like saying cats sometimes knock stuff over. Karen doesn't live next to you, she reigns next to you. The next morning, Jake and I debated what to do. My first instinct was to march over and talk to her. Maybe explain. Maybe apologize. Surely some rational human would understand that music at noon wasn't the same as hosting Coachella on a Tuesday. So I baked cookies, yep. I, a grown man with a full-time job, baked chocolate chip cookies like a peace offering. A suburban sacrament. Warm, gooey, and hopeful that I walked across the street, still slightly warm plate in hand, rang her doorbell, and waited. Karen opened the door wearing a cardigan that could have been knitted from passive aggression. Her smile was brittle and her eyes scanned me like TSA scans a water bottle. "Hi," I said, trying to sound pleasant and not sarcastic. "I just wanted to talk about the noise complaint." "Maybe we can. You'll want to read the handbook," she interrupted, eyes already narrowing. Page 7, paragraph 3. Daytime hours are not exempt if the sound exceeds a decibel threshold. Right. But it was barely. "We all hear things differently," she said, voice syrupy and lethal. "To you, it was Rick Astley. To me, it was an assault on the peace." She took the cookies. Closed the door. I stood there like an idiot, holding an empty plate and a full tank of rage. The next day, another letter came. Violation. Trash bins placed curbside 27 minutes prior to approved time. Fine, $75. The next. Lawn exceeding regulation length of 3.5 inches by 0.2 inches. Fine, $50. Then, improper welcome mat. Fine, $25. I measured the mat. It said, "Come back with tacos." Apparently, Karen wanted blood, and silence. Jake watched as I collected my fourth fine in as many days and muttered, "She's not even hiding it anymore. This is HOA harassment. You're being Karen to death." I called the HOA office, tried to appeal. The voice on the other end sounded like it came from an old Dracula movie. "Ms. Whitmore serves as president and enforces regulations. If you have a dispute, you may submit a written complaint to the committee, which will be reviewed during the next quarterly meeting." Quarterly? That's in 2 months. That is correct. Have a pleasant day. Click. That night, Jake and I sat in the living room surrounded by a pile of fines, HOA bylaws, and one poorly designed spreadsheet that made it very clear. Karen was gunning for me. "You can't out Karen a Karen," Jake said. "Then I'm not going to," I said, eyes narrowing. "I'm going to out chaos her." He raised a brow. "How chaotic are we talking?" "Legally chaotic." Pause. "You're not thinking of burning her roses, are you?" "No. I'm thinking music. Lots of music." The silence that followed was thick. Then Jake grinned slowly, mischievously. "If you're doing what I think you're doing, I want in." I looked at him, eyes lit with revenge and brass instruments. "She hates noise? Let's give her a concert." The idea wasn't fully formed yet. But the spark had been lit. Something about that fine, about being punished for enjoying a sandwich and a harmless bop, snapped a wire in my brain. I realized I couldn't live like this, tiptoeing around the rules, waiting for the next envelope of doom to drop into my mailbox like a cursed Hogwarts letter. Karen wanted silence. She wanted control, but me? I wanted drums. I wanted trumpets. I wanted every single cymbal in the Tri-County area to crash outside her perfectly symmetrical house and announce, once and for all, that this was war, and I had just the plan in mind. After all, if Karen could weaponize rules, I could weaponize rhythm. What came next? Let's just say, I hope she likes Sousa. The first tuba blast at 7 a.m. on a Saturday was only the beginning. Karen Whitmore woke to find herself under siege, not by vandals or burglars, but by a full marching band assembling precisely 30 feet from her driveway. High schoolers in pressed uniforms filed in, instruments gleaming in the morning sun. They tuned up with purpose, not enthusiasm. Each was paid $50 and promised extra credit by a substitute music teacher who owed me a favor. By 7:05, the Stars and Stripes Forever exploded across Willow Creek Estates, window blinds snapped open all down the street. A jogger tripped over a sprinkler head. Birds scattered. A neighbor dropped their morning smoothie. And in the center of it all stood Karen, robe cinched tight, coffee trembling in her hand like the last hope of a dying empire. Her mouth moved, but no one heard a word. Jake was filming everything from our front porch, sipping his cereal milk straight from the bowl. "This is the single greatest moment of my life," he said, deadpan. "And I once met Danny DeVito at a car wash." The music ended with a thunderous cymbal crash. The band bowed as if at Carnegie Hall, then scattered like trained saboteurs. Karen stormed over 10 minutes later, face flushed crimson, HOA clipboard in hand like a weaponized Bible. "You think this is funny?" she snapped, jabbing a finger toward the now empty street. "This is harassment. This is organized chaos." I stepped outside, still in my pajamas. Technically, it was a permitted musical rehearsal. Public noise under 80 decibels. Temporary gathering. I triple-checked your bylaws. Karen's nostrils flared. "You ambushed my home with Sousa. At sunrise." I nodded. "He's very patriotic. You violated the sanctity of this neighborhood." Jake leaned in from behind me. "It was tasteful. Also, legally sound. We even got a one-day performance permit from the city. Stamped and everything." She stared at me like she was trying to make my head explode with telekinesis. "You think you're clever, don't you?" I smiled, perfectly bland. "No, ma'am. I think I'm in compliance." That was the moment Karen Whitmore snapped. The next day, new signs appeared across the neighborhood. New HOA guidelines effective immediately: no audible music outdoors or from open windows at any hour. No congregations exceeding 3 people on front lawns. Lawn mowing must occur between 10 to 10:45 a.m. on Wednesdays only. No welcome mats with unauthorized text or humor. Decorative plants must be non-distracting, drought-resistant, and HOA approved. Violations now subject to daily fines. They were typed in 14-point Times New Roman, laminated, and zip-tied to lampposts with terrifying efficiency. Overnight, our neighborhood turned into something between a gated community and a totalitarian art installation. Karen hadn't just gone full HOA dictator. She'd evolved. Within 48 hours, drones began hovering. Real drones. HOA-labeled quadcopters patrolling at roof level like airborne tattletales. No one knew where she got them. Jake swore he saw one scan his recycling bin. People began whispering when they passed her house. Children walked faster near her driveway. One poor soul got a citation for humming Bohemian Rhapsody while watering his begonias. The Facebook group Free Willow Creek exploded. Posts ranged from furious to panicked. "Did anyone else get fined for wind chimes?" My kid sneezed during nap time and Karen showed up with a noise meter. "Does anyone know a lawyer? Or an exorcist?" Then came the mandatory community meeting. Held in the clubhouse at the edge of the neighborhood, it felt more like a tribunal than a gathering. Folding chairs. Lukewarm lemonade. Karen at the head table, flanked by 2 newly appointed compliance ambassadors, Steve and Cheryl, both of whom had suspiciously perfect lawns and soulless smiles. I showed up late on purpose. Made sure I wore my Taco Welcome Mat Appreciation Society t-shirt. Jake followed with a speaker slung over his shoulder, playing white noise from a baby monitor. Legally ambiguous, emotionally satisfying. Karen cleared her throat into the mic. Thank you for coming. As many of you have noticed, we're undergoing a period of increased enforcement. This is for the good of our community. Someone coughed. Another shifted uncomfortably. She continued. Some residents have forgotten the meaning of standards. Without rules, we have chaos. Without discipline, we have decline. From the back row, I raised my hand. And without music, we have, what, exactly? Fascism with ferns? Polite gasps fluttered. Karen's jaw tightened. Mr. Harris, if you wish to file a formal objection, you may submit a Form 22C in triplicate. I did. You shredded it in front of my face and said, "Try me, Beethoven." That got a few stifled laughs. Even Steve looked uncomfortable. Karen ignored them. Let me be clear. I have full authority to enforce these rules. The board supports me. Where is the board? Jake asked, looking around. I haven't seen them in weeks. They've delegated powers for efficiency. Karen snapped. They resigned. Someone whispered behind me. All three. Last Thursday. Karen's smile didn't waver. Then I'm simply doing what must be done. That's when I knew this wasn't about lawns or music. Not really. It was about control. Her control. Karen had tasted unopposed power, and she wasn't letting go. When the meeting ended, neighbors trickled out in silence. I stood at the exit, nodding to them like a campaigner at a rally. Fight the good fight, I said under my breath. She fears unity. By Monday, Operation Noise Reclamation was in full swing. Jake and I distributed small Bluetooth speakers to every willing neighbor. Pre-synced. Pre-timed. Each set to play different tracks at slightly offset times. Classical, jazz, lo-fi, whale sounds, whatever annoyed her without triggering the exact same violation. Karen woke to a neighborhood alive with untraceable harmony. She tried fining everyone. She tried mailing individual threats. But without evidence, without recordings or matching violations, her power thinned. That night, someone left a box of earplugs on her porch. No one admitted to it. The next morning, the drones vanished. Then came the moment none of us saw coming. At exactly 6:55 a.m., a moving truck pulled up in front of Karen's house. I thought it was another HOA stunt. A bluff. Maybe she was having her home redecorated for maximum order. But then I saw the boxes. Real boxes. Labeled. Stacked. Carried by professionals. She was leaving. I walked across the street, cautiously. Found her standing beside her hydrangeas, arms crossed, lips tight. You moving, Karen? She glanced at me, tired in a way I hadn't seen before. You poisoned them. The plants? No. The people. I blinked. They're not poisoned. They just remembered they have rights. She didn't reply. Instead, she watched as a man wheeled out a framed HOA certificate wrapped in plastic. The crown jewel of her regime. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. So what now? I asked. I'm transferring to another community. One with standards. One that appreciates structure. I'm sure they'll love the drones. She got in her car, shut the door, and didn't look back. That afternoon, neighbors gathered for a block party that wasn't technically allowed under her old rules. Lawn chairs appeared. Dogs barked. Kids shrieked. Someone brought a karaoke machine, and yes, Rick Astley made a triumphant return. We toasted with lemonade and bad wine. Jake raised his cup toward me and said, "To victory over the HOA regime." I corrected him. To noise. Sweet, glorious, unregulated noise. Karen was gone, but the damage she'd done wouldn't vanish overnight. There were still forms. Still fees. Still remnants of her tyranny, but we had something better now: unity, music, and an HOA handbook that would never be weaponized again. Not on our watch. Or, as Jake spray-painted on a plywood sign the next morning, planted squarely in my lawn, "We're never gonna give you up." And this time, everyone clapped. The lawn still bore the outline of a folding chair battlefield. Glitter from the impromptu karaoke finale sparkled in the morning sun like party shrapnel. Empty wine bottles stood like strange monuments to a neighborhood recently freed from dictatorship. But the quiet, the strange, uneasy quiet, had returned to Willow Creek Estates. Not the peace of harmony, but the silence of expectation. Jake sat cross-legged in my driveway, sketching something on a legal pad. "I don't trust it," he muttered. "It's too quiet." I looked up from my coffee. "Karen's gone. It's supposed to be quiet." "Exactly," he said, flipping the pad around. It was a crude drawing of a horse, but with a Karen-shaped silhouette hiding inside. What if she Trojan horsed us? I laughed, but not entirely. Karen Whitmore's departure had felt definitive: cardboard boxes, certified mail, and a surprisingly silent departure for someone who once called the city to report a Statue of Liberty-themed bird feeder. But Jake had a point. No one in their right mind wielded that much petty power just to vanish. Later that afternoon, the first email arrived. Subject line: New Interim HOA Leadership. I stared at the name: Trevor Yates, acting chairperson. Trevor was 20. Maybe. Possibly 19. Known mostly for driving his mom's hybrid too fast and vaping near the tennis courts. He'd been in college for all of 6 months before dropping out to focus on crypto. Now, he was apparently the leader of our neighborhood. The email was long, rambling, and peppered with emojis. It ended with this sentence: "We'll be streamlining the HOA to better reflect the vibes of the community. Namaste." Rocket fire. I blinked. Jake read over my shoulder. Oh God. We traded Stalin for TikTok. At the emergency gathering in the clubhouse, which was now sporting neon lights and a smell I can only describe as Axe body spray fused with energy drink, Trevor wore sunglasses indoors and a hoodie that said "Defy for Life." Beside him stood a girl in roller skates, possibly named Nova or maybe Galaxy. She never introduced herself, only handed out incense sticks and kept referring to the homeowners as tribal stakeholders. Trevor tapped the mic. "What's up, fam?" "So yeah. We're making HOA stuff chill. No more Karen vibes. That's not who we are anymore." There was a half-hearted clap from someone in the back. "From now on," he continued, "all violations will be converted into community engagement tokens." I raised a hand. "What happens if we break an actual rule?" Trevor grinned. "We reward you, bro. Innovators push boundaries. That's why starting next week, we're doing Freedom Fridays. No fines, no rules, just vibe checks." An elderly couple near the snacks looked terrified. Jake whispered, "I don't know if this is better or worse." It was worse. By Monday, the neighborhood had begun to rot under Trevor's chaotic optimism. Trash cans stayed on the curb for days. Cars parked on lawns. One guy painted his house matte black and said it was an anti-establishment statement. The HOA board was now a group chat with rotating admins. Trevor posted polls like, "Should we let goats mow the lawns naturally?" 42% yes. In Karen's reign, everything was too controlled. Now, there was no control at all. and oddly enough, I started to miss the enemy I knew. On Wednesday, the drones came back, not Karen's drones. These were newer, sleeker, branded with Trevor's name and QR codes that linked to #HarmonizeTheHood. They didn't monitor violations. They filmed content. One hovered outside my bathroom window with a sticker that read, "Subscribe for more community action." Jake threw a frisbee at it. That night, the HOA website crashed. I logged in to pay my water bill and was redirected to a Twitch stream of Trevor live commentating his own video of urban lawn skating. By Thursday, 10 houses were on the market. Families were fleeing, not because of rules but because of anarchy. The HOA wasn't dead. It had mutated. I walked the cul-de-sac alone that evening, watching shadows stretch over the abandoned tulip beds and chalk graffiti on mailboxes. It felt wrong. Too many lights off. Too many windows shut. The community hadn't recovered. It had fallen into something worse than tyranny. It had lost trust. I stood outside Karen's old house. Empty. Clean. For sale, but untouched. No decorations, no furniture. Just sterile absence. That's when the idea hit me, not a prank. Not a joke. A real plan. I gathered our neighborhood regulars the next morning: Jake, the Bruners, Mrs. Delacourt from the garden club, even Barry, the former HOA treasurer who claimed he had a conflict allergy. We met in my garage. Closed door. No phones. I called it Operation Marching Orders. This time, I said, we don't fight the system. We become the system. There were raised eyebrows, confused looks. We hold a legal vote. No trickery. No antics. No banned ambushes. We get the signatures. We draft the bylaws. We form a real board, elected, accountable, boring as hell. We rebuild the HOA our way. Fair. Transparent. And noise-friendly. Jake blinked. Are you suggesting a legitimate coup? I'm suggesting we save the neighborhood. With bureaucracy. There was a long pause, then Mrs. Delacourt said, I have a printer that does double-sided. That night, we printed the paperwork. Over the next 3 days, we canvassed like old-school revolutionaries. Door to door. We shook hands. We answered questions. We promised sanity. People were hungry for it. Tired of chaos. Tired of war. By Saturday, we had the numbers. More than enough to call for a vote to dissolve Trevor's acting leadership and establish a formal interim board. The meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon at the clubhouse. Trevor arrived shirtless, wearing a cape. He brought 2 YouTubers and a man who claimed to be his life coach. They streamed the whole thing. Jake set up a folding table and handed out ballots. No fanfare. Just democracy. The vote wasn't even close. Trevor read the results live, then shrugged. Well, that's vibes, I guess. He left without argument, though not before trying to sell everyone a custom NFT of the clubhouse fountain. We elected a 5-person board, rotating chair, monthly reports. Jake became the noise ordinance liaison, his dream title. Mrs. Delacourt managed landscaping standards. Barry weaseled into treasury again. I was in charge of communications. We even brought back the welcome committee, this time with cookies instead of bylaws. The chaos ebbed. The neighborhood stabilized. One afternoon, I found a letter in my mailbox. No return address. Just a single sentence in tidy cursive. You won. For now. K. I looked up. Across the street, a new family was moving into Karen's old house. Kids playing on the lawn. Laughter, but the blinds in the upstairs bedroom were drawn tight, and they stayed that way. Maybe she was gone. Maybe not. Either way, we were ready. The air was crisp as I stood at the edge of the cul-de-sac, watching the sun dip low over Willow Creek estates. It was strange, but there was a feeling of finality in the air, something that didn't sit quite right. Maybe it was because I had just signed my name as the new communications officer on the HOA's official documents. Maybe it was the strange satisfaction that came with the stability of knowing that, after a year of chaos, we were now the ones in control. But then again, maybe it was something else entirely. The mailman had just dropped off a thick envelope at my door. I picked it up, feeling its weight. No return address. Just a plain, formal envelope with my name typed on it in crisp black ink. I'd seen this before. That scent, heavy, like expensive paper, was unmistakable. That it was Karen's handwriting. That I tore it open and unfolded the single sheet of paper inside. The words were as sharp and cold as a winter's wind. You might have won this round, but don't get too comfortable. My next act will be my swan song, and it will be one you will never forget. I am not done with Willow Creek. Consider this the calm before the storm. I paused, running a finger across the words. The arrogance. The certainty. It was classic Karen that I didn't know whether to laugh or be concerned. But as I stared at the paper in my hands, the doubt crept in. Was she really done? Could we really move on, or had we just been lulled into a false sense of security? I turned around to see Jake, who had been pacing back and forth on the driveway, casually tossing a basketball up and down. "What's the verdict?" he asked, without even looking up. I sighed. "It's her. It's a warning. She's coming back." Jake froze, then grinned. "Oh, this is gonna be good." We weren't wrong. By that Friday, the first signs of trouble started creeping in. It was small at first, the kind of things that didn't seem to add up. A missed trash pickup here, a broken streetlight there. A few residents started to complain about the neighborhood's sudden decline in a vibe, as Trevor would put it. Then, one morning, the unmistakable sound of a loudspeaker blasted from the far corner of the block. "Attention, Willow Creek residents." The voice crackled through the speakers, a voice I would recognize anywhere. "This is Karen Whitmore. I am officially reclaiming my position as your HOA chairwoman. Effective immediately, all new guidelines are to be adhered to, effective immediately, starting with the following: no more lawn signs, no more Freedom Fridays, and absolutely no more vibe checks. You will follow the rules, or else." I stood frozen in my driveway, watching as Karen's face, on a massive banner, flapped in the wind on the front lawn of her old house, now the epicenter of this new rebellion. It was like a sick parody of a dictatorship. Jake walked up, shaking his head. "She really doesn't know when to quit, does she?" "Nope," I muttered. "But she's about to learn a hard lesson. The HOA might be our domain now." It was clear she wasn't just aiming to stir up trouble, she was staging a full-scale comeback. And by the looks of it, she had allies. People were starting to flock to her house, and whispers of her return spread like wildfire through the neighborhood. The weekend before she formally launched her so-called Karen Archie, we held a special HOA meeting to address her insurrection. I sat at the table, looking over the board members, who seemed more amused than concerned. Jake kept scrolling through his phone, Barry was scrolling through a stock chart on his tablet, and Mrs. Delacourt was cataloging new hydrangea varieties for the spring garden, but I knew the storm was coming. That it was a quiet Sunday morning when it happened. I received an anonymous email with a video file. My heart sank as I clicked the attachment. The footage was shaky but unmistakable. Karen, with her face flushed and her eyes wide with her trademark smugness, stood outside in the middle of the cul-de-sac. She had somehow managed to rally a small but vocal group of disgruntled residents, all carrying signs that read, "Bring back Karen" and "HOA freedom now." The irony was too much. The audacity. Karen was staging a protest, against the very same rules she had established, against the very structure she'd created to control everything. It was a deliciously ironic twist of fate, and I couldn't help but smile as I watched the video, but then, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Behind the protesters, hidden in plain sight, was a large white van with tinted windows. I zoomed in on the image. It was the van that had once been parked in front of Karen's house when she was still on the board. The one she'd used to gather surveillance footage, the one she had brought with her when she'd enforced the rules. And now it was back. The van had been parked there all along. "Jake!" I shouted. He dropped his phone and ran over. "She's not just protesting. She's organizing." Jake grabbed my phone and stared at the video. "Crap," he muttered. "She's got a plan. This is just the opening act. She's gonna make sure it all burns down. We've got to stop her before she recruits anyone else. We need to hit back, and hard." We spent the next few days preparing. I coordinated with the board, keeping them informed and rallying the other residents to our cause. Jake went to work on his end, calling in favors from everyone he knew who'd had enough of Karen's antics. Mrs. Delacourt joined us, offering to bring some of her most loyal garden club members to the table. It was a strange kind of mobilization, one that felt like a neighborhood war, with passive-aggressive weapons. The night before the showdown, I stayed up late drafting a countermessage. A video. We needed something to dismantle Karen's public image. Something big. Something she wouldn't see coming, and then it hit me. The video would be simple, a montage of her greatest hits. Her yelling at the ice cream truck driver for parking too close to the fire hydrant. Her calling the cops on a kid's birthday party because of noise complaints. Her fun home surveillance footage. It would be everything she thought she could hide, but the kicker? We would get her. The last image on the video would be Karen herself, caught in an incredibly awkward moment, her smirking face, caught mid-rant, frozen for eternity. The video dropped like a bomb. I had never seen the neighborhood react like this before. The response was immediate. Shares. Likes. Comments. It was viral, way beyond what we expected. Karen, of course, retaliated. She stormed the clubhouse that same night, demanding a meeting with the board. Her hands were shaking with rage, but she kept her face locked in the smug mask. Her usual power trip swagger. "I'm not going anywhere," she hissed at us. "I built this place. You don't get to take it from me." Her words fell flat. Her followers, seeing the video, were now laughing. Mocking her. The tables had turned. And as Karen stood there, furious, I realized, this wasn't just about Willow Creek. It was about control, about authority, about her need to feel in charge. And now? The game was over. With no one left to follow her, Karen's reign had come to a humiliating end. She left that night, but not in victory. No. This time, she was retreating. No more grand speeches. No more protests. No more schemes. The final note was delivered in the form of an apology letter to the neighborhood, unsigned. I knew who it was from. "To all Willow Creek residents, my swan song has played out, and I am stepping down. You have my full resignation. I hope you find peace in the chaos I caused." The storm was over. And Karen's swan song had been a cacophony of her own making, but I knew one thing: this would not be the last time we'd see her. There was always another HOA Karen waiting just around the corner, and when that time came, we would be ready.